All right, welcome to Ethan Skolnick starting five. I am not Dame Lillard. I'm Ethan Skolnick. You can follow me at Ethan J. Skolnick and at 5 Reasons Sports, or you can follow me to Milwaukee. We are produced here, as always, by our friend Manny Chang. Say thank you to him for getting up this morning and doing this for us. Also, we are sponsored by our friends over at All Pro Construction Builders. You can find them at allproconstructionbuilders.com. Quality is their specialty. Mention 5 Reasons. And you're going to get 10% off your entire order. Get those storm windows, those storm doors. We haven't had a big storm yet, but that doesn't mean that they're not coming. So reach out to Danny and his team. Danny was reaching out to me yesterday. He's a huge Miami Heat fan. He was as upset as the rest of you. So again, I apologize to anybody I didn't get back to yesterday. It was one of those days, as you can imagine. I was at a Whole Foods trying to get some dinner for my daughter since I don't cook. And yeah, it happened right there. So, Danny, again, I appreciate you reaching out yesterday. I apologize I didn't get back to you, but you have much more important things to do than get Dame Lillard to Miami, which is protect people's houses. Also, you can renovate their houses. That's what they do at All Pro Construction Builders. Reach out at 305-484-4429. That's 305-484-4429. All Pro Construction Builders, allproconstructionbuilders.com. Also, Prize Picks. Use the code 5, FIVE. Get that initial deposit matched up to $100. Maybe you'll save some money on Heat tickets now. You can use it at Prize Picks. Use the code 5, FIVE. Get that initial deposit matched up to $100 at prizepicks.com. There it is. All right, so let's get to it. Everybody's upset today. And I'm not going to do a whole lot here to tell you not to be upset. Let's just start there, okay? And whether you're upset with Joe Cronin, whether you're upset with the process, whether you're upset with the Miami Heat front office, whether you're upset with anything, you have a right today because this was the guy to me. And so even though, and as I said on 5 on the Floor last night, and that's going to post here on the YouTube channel shortly, although I understand the Heat's rationale and I understand the circumstances and I understand dealing with an irrational partner on the other side. And look, I don't think Joe Cronin got a lot. I know that there's some that are giving him A pluses for this deal. Really? I mean, let's see what he gets for Drew Holiday first, okay? Before evaluating the total trade, because clearly Drew is not there to stay there, right? And we'll see how many contenders ante up, and we'll talk about that here as we go forward as it comes to the Heat. Although I am really dubious about the prospect of Joe Cronin dealing with the Heat on Drew Holiday when he wouldn't on Dame Lillard, and I'm also concerned about the Heat giving up too much for Drew Holiday. Just to sort of, again, recover from what just happened with Dame and Joe Cronin, holding him over the coals, and then ultimately, him going to Philadelphia or some other team or Boston anyway. So I'm not going to put a lot of stock in it. I'm not going to get anybody's hopes up about Drew Holiday. Obviously, I understand he'd be a great fit. There's 2 years left on that contract. Jimmy likes him, but I'm not going to do that to anybody here because to me, Dame was the guy. You had a player who is still playing at an absolutely elite level offensively. Like he had a historically great offensive season last year before Portland shut him down. When we went through the metrics, it was like a top 3 season for a guard in the past 25 years, okay? He's still absolutely elite, and he's going to be electric playing with Giannis. And not only that, he fit perfectly between Jimmy and Bam. He's the guy that they wanted. He did ask out. He asked out for only Miami. That might have been a blunder looking back at it. I know we said we wanted that if you were a Heat observer, but ultimately it seems like it fixed Joe Cronin in his position that he wasn't going to do what Dame wanted to do there because he felt backed into a corner, and it probably did not help. And the stuff that Aaron Goodwin did probably did not help, okay? But with all of that said, and again, understanding the $63 million at the end of the contract, understanding the compensation that you would have to give up, okay? They had to get him. I'm not going to move off of that position. And I know that some with the Heat, and I'll be at Media Day on Monday, and I'll be at training camp in Boca starting Tuesday, and some with the Heat will give their explanation or all the rest of it. And I'm just going to say this is a results-oriented business. In my view, they had to get him. Like, this was the time to do this in Jimmy's window. I like Tyler Hero. I think Jovic is going to be great. I like Jaquez. I mean, we have to see more of him. I understand what Caleb Martin brought to the team last year. I get all of this. But ultimately, you're talking about upgrading the top end of your roster. It was time. They're not running it back. That's not really fair. This roster is different. Part of it is because they didn't pay Strus and Vincent. I didn't have an issue with either of those two decisions. They're bringing in Josh Richardson. They got Thomas Bryant. They're going to play the kids more. It's a different roster, okay? But the top end of the roster is the same. And the top end of the roster needed to get upgraded. And the biggest part of this, and I don't even think enough are talking about this, and I'm surprised, is it's a double whammy because literally the one team, I guess you could say Boston, but the other team that you take seriously in the Eastern Conference got him. So it's doubly bad. Like it's not just that you didn't get him. I mean, he's not going. I mean, in Toronto, okay, it would have been a cute little story. They weren't going to be better than 4th or 5th in the East anyway. You've now not only allowed him, again, we can talk about whose fault that is, but the reality is he's in Milwaukee. However it happened, he's in Milwaukee. Not only is he going to be in Milwaukee for this year, assisting Giannis, and I like Drew a lot, okay? I like Drew a lot. He's been one of my favorite players for a long time. Jimmy cooked him in the playoffs. And Drew offensively is not what Dame is. He's good, but he's fallen off a lot in the postseason in recent years. And again, they got Middleton healthy now from the beginning. They still have Brook Lopez. They still have Portis. Their team, we talked about nobody getting significantly better in the East. Well, somebody just did for this season. But it's not just that. Now you've taken yourself out of the Giannis thing in the future because there were rumblings of him leaving. Well, they just gave him an elite offensive player, a top 10 player in the NBA. I don't think Giannis is going anywhere now. So scratch that off the list. So like this was, again, we can argue about whose fault this was. Again, Cronin, whatever. We appreciate the donations now. I'll get to some of these questions. What happens now? Miami strikes out another all-star player. I don't think fans can take another season of the organization saying we have enough anymore when clearly that's not true. Well, look, they had enough to get to the finals. Okay, that's going to be their argument. And they were a 7 seed. We know how that season went. There were things going on behind the scenes, too, that we've never even reported that I think made the season challenging. And then they were the most injured team in the Eastern Conference. So there were a lot of factors that played into that, and they had historically bad season shooting compared to where they were the season before. And I think they're better this year. I do. I've said that repeatedly. But I don't think they're good enough to win a championship. Okay? And now what's happened is Milwaukee. I still don't think Boston's significantly better because I don't think Porzingis is going to be healthy when it matters. He's not even healthy now. Okay? And I think they're going to miss Smart. But God forbid now Boston gets in the Drew mix. Right? And they're interested. And do you have confidence in the Heat to close one of these deals? And not only that, again, as I've said, are they going to close a deal with Joe Cronin? I don't see it. So I'm not one of those who's typically over the top negative. I still believe in the Heat's core principles. I like their roster. I understand their rationale. I understand the circumstances. I'm just talking bottom line. Bottom line is Dame Lillard should have been a member of the Miami Heat starting with media day on Monday. We've been saying Portland was going to be motivated to trade him. All that was BS. The idea, take him into the season, take him to the trade deadline. They weren't going to take him to media day. That wasn't going to happen, okay? But I almost think what happened here, and this worked against the Heat, and we talked about this on one of the pods. We threw it out there, but we didn't really get into it, okay? Is that the way that Portland treated Dame, I think worked against Miami too, because I think Dame at a certain point just want to get the hell out of there. Like it was, at first it was, okay, I want to get out of here and I want to go to Miami. But then it was like, no, just get me the hell out of here, right? And Milwaukee can be justified. I mean, not as a city. My daughter literally said to me yesterday, she's 9, she's like, they sent him to Milwaukee? That's mean. But as a basketball property, playing with arguably the best player in the world, or one of the top 2, I think you can make a reasonable argument. It's him or Jokic at this point. Like, I get it. He's a great fit with Dame. I mean, Giannis and Brook Lopez are gonna protect Dame defensively in a lot of the same ways that Bam and Jimmy were. And so Dame can just do his thing. And they've needed another creator along with Giannis. And here's another huge advantage for Milwaukee now, and we'll probably get into this more in a podcast, is that Giannis is a reluctant and bad free throw shooter down the stretch. Well, now the ball's going to be in Dame's hands all the time. They're going to run pick and roll. Giannis can just do his thing, which is just bulldoze people to the basket. But Dame's going to put him in better positions. And also, Dame creates the ultimate vertical spacing. Like, there's nobody in the league, vertical, horizontal. He creates it all over the place. Like, nobody but Curry creates that kind of space. We were talking about the Dame Bam pick and rolls and what you're going to be seeing. And I don't want to upset people here, but this to me would be different if he was sent to Toronto, if he was sent to New Orleans, if he was sent to Utah, which is one of the teams that popped up as a possibility. I mean, even Brooklyn, because they've shown that they fumble the bag with stars all the time, right? How many stars have they had in and out of there? They don't win a damn thing. But Milwaukee's won. They've won with Giannis, and now they've essentially given a second life to that core in Milwaukee. Who's giving Jimmy the lifeline? I talked to someone close to Jimmy yesterday, was like, stop stressing about this. He's going to be fine. Okay. This person said to me, he'll take Bouye to the finals. Okay. That's the confidence Jimmy has in himself, right? Bouye is not even here anymore. By the way, that was a total jinx because 45 minutes later, the Heat cut Bouye. But this Heat roster, I like it. But is it beating Milwaukee when it matters? Who's the point guard? Because it ain't Kyle Lowry. I'm sorry. It's not. The Heat don't think it's Kyle Lowry at this point. All right. There's some up and down in terms of some in the Heat organization think more can be gotten out of Kyle than others do. But as John Jablonka tweeted, he's averaged since January 1st, Kyle Lowry averaged 7 points, 4 rebounds, and 3 assists, or 3 rebounds and 4 assists. Excuse me. He's not a starting level point guard anymore. And it's not even is he an elite, which is what they thought they were getting. He's not starter level. He's a guy that you can bring off the bench for 15 minutes to play with the young guys and kind of get them in the right place. I mean, I think that's how they're going to use him if he's still on the roster. And he may close some games as a result of that when they need to get organized. But otherwise, the bulk of the ball handling here is going to be in the hands of Tyler Hero and Jimmy Butler. And although I think both can do it, because Josh, look, I really like the Josh move, and I've said that, but Josh is not a point guard. Like, they tried that. When he was a rookie, they sent him to Sioux Falls to run 1,000 pick and rolls. I used to run into the airport. He'd be on connecting flights to go learn to do that. It's not his thing, okay? He's an off-the-ball player. You don't want the ball in his hands too often. I think he's going to be very effective. He would have been more effective off of Dame, much more. Okay, but I think he can be a 37, 38% three-point shooter on about 6 attempts a game, and he's going to defend. He's going to compete. He wants to be here. I don't think he's washed like some people think he is. I think Josh is a great bargain for the minimum, but you don't want the ball in his hands all the time. So who's getting it? Again, Tyler can do it, but don't you want to free Tyler up to do what Tyler does best? Play off the ball, find the crevices in the defense, that kind of stuff. This comes in from Zay. Why not Jovic? I mean, I think they'll experiment with everything now. Honestly, they do not have a point guard on the roster that can start. They don't. Like, it's just and look, they did this before with Nunn and Robinson with that team. That's not really the backcourt that ended up getting to the finals because they had to put Dragic in there. I know people are going to talk about Goran. I mean, he's sitting by his phone. He's in Miami, is my understanding, or he was recently. I guess you could, but he's not a starter level point guard at this stage either. Even he doesn't think he is. When I talked to him when he was in with Chicago last year, he says, I think I can play 2 or 3 more years at a pretty high level, about 15 to 20 minutes a game. I mean, that's max, I think, for Goran. So they don't have a point guard. So it's not just that you're burdening Jimmy with having to carry, but you're burdening Jimmy now with having to initiate all the time or a lot of the time. Erik Spoelstra is the best coach in the world. I believe that. I actually think that the Dolphins and the Heat have the 2 most innovative coaches in their respective sports right now. This is going to be a challenge. And I don't think it's as much of a challenge with what people are talking about with, this idea of players being dissatisfied or anything. Look, they've dealt with this kind of thing before. 2009, 2010 season, the whole team were free agents, everybody, because they were trying to clear cap space for 2010. That was a difficult season to navigate. Spo got them to the playoffs. Okay, with Dwayne and really not a hell of a lot else, okay, before they flamed out against Boston. This team's more talented overall than that team, although you can argue that Dwayne was at a higher level than this Jimmy. Apples and oranges, depends what you like, but Dwayne was closer to his prime at that stage. But I don't think that's going to be the problem. I don't think getting Tyler on the right page, regardless of what he's liking on Instagram or Twitter or the rest of that, he's motivated. He's 23. He's he's been working all summer. And I feel like whether he was here or someone else, he wanted to be here. So you would figure he will make the best of this situation. I don't think that that's going to be the problem. To me, the problem is the roster composition right now, and that you don't have a point guard. And you put your eggs in the basket, and that's the other thing. We can talk about, well, they didn't go all in and all this, but they did wait again. They waited out the process, which I was fine with. And look, I'm going to take my own slings and arrows for this. I thought they were handling it correctly because they've been able to pull off these deals at the last second before, and I did not think that they should capitulate. And it's clear that even if they had capitulated, that maybe that wouldn't have been enough anyway, because this team just wasn't going to deal with them, okay? Or they just weren't going to be competent enough to like the Heat's offer. I think Portland is going to regret the Ayton thing. Ayton, Phoenix wanted to get rid of Ayton for again to move forward, okay? And Phoenix didn't take a whole lot for him, but I don't think, to me, Milwaukee was an A+ in this trade. Phoenix, I'm not sure, maybe a C+. And Portland, it depends on Drew, but if they don't get a lot for Drew, I think it's a D. And some people are rating them an A+. Now this comes in. Let's get TJ McConnell. I think that's a possibility. Jimmy likes him quite a bit. I think people know that. They have a relationship. And the numbers work. I mean, if you trade Kyle Lowry and a first-round pick for Buddy Hield and TJ McConnell, I mean, Buddy's on the last year of his deal. Do people like that trade? Is that an option? Because I know that the Heat were in on Buddy regardless, whether Dame was here or not here. Is that a possibility? Is that better than sending 2 first-round picks and a young player and Lowry's contract for Holiday? The overall point is they need to get a point guard somewhere. They need to find another ball handler here. They talked up Bouye the whole offseason, and now they've got Drew Smith on the roster. Talking about Miles Turner, I think the point guard position is a bigger issue. I think their front court is fine. I really do. I think Bam, Love, Jovic, Highsmith guarding up, Caleb playing the 4 occasionally, Thomas Bryant, Orlando Robinson. I think their front court is fine. Like, I think they're much deeper in the front court. There's no Cody Zeller minutes. There's no Dwayne Dedmon minutes. I think they're okay there. The backcourt, Hero and Richardson together for stretches, I like it. I think it's likely what's going to start, but you need to upgrade the overall point guard position. I just positionless, not positionless. You're taking away from Jimmy and Tyler's strengths to force them to initiate offense in that way. And yes, Spo will get creative and he'll run, pick and rolls with Bam up top as he did, but he didn't go to that consistently. I think this is where I come down. Okay. There will be more of an autopsy here over the next couple of days. I said that on 5 on the Floor. We'll figure out exactly what happened. That's part of what my job is today. But there are 2 huge problems here. One is the Milwaukee Bucks should be prohibitive favorites to win the East now. I don't think there's any question about that. I think Boston is second, and now Miami falls somewhere in that next group. Okay, with Cleveland. We'll see what happens with Philadelphia and Harden. I don't really want to get into a lot on Harden. Could the Heat look at a rental there? Yes. Would that work out? My opinion is no. But the other thing is this. People are asking about the future after Jimmy, and we'll get to that too. But I think that Jimmy's title window has significantly closed, not just because they didn't get Dame, but because Milwaukee did. And, you look at what happened with LeBron in the East for years is now happening with Giannis, where there are retools around him to give him the best possible chance. And Giannis's weaknesses, okay, the chinks in the armor, so to speak, are putting the ball in his hands late in games and him having to make crucial free throws and make those plays in those situations. And you have now, and again, his ability to stretch the floor. And now you've given him a partner in Dame Lillard who could do all of those things for him. It wasn't a good day for the Heat, no matter how you look at it. So now what? I think they need to find a point guard somewhere. Okay, but I don't think it's going to ultimately be Drew. And maybe I'll be wrong again here. And Heat fans, they'll get Drew for 1 first-round pick and Kyle Lowry's contract. Joe Cronin wouldn't return their calls for 2 months or wouldn't call them for 2 months. Now all of a sudden, he's going to take care of them with Drew Holiday? I'm not seeing it. All right. Thanks to our sponsors, All Pro Construction Builders, also Prize Picks. I wish I could be happier today, but I don't think you guys want that. Like I think again, I'm not going to scream about this person in the front office or that person in the front office again. Until there's an autopsy on this and a full understanding of what happened, that's not the kind of thing that I do. I'll let others do that on social media. I'm just looking at the result. The end result is a primary rival in the Eastern Conference, a team that you've run into in the playoffs 3 of the last 4 years. And yes, you got them twice. They're going to be better than they've ever been. And I just don't think in this case the Heat are going to have enough. Thanks to Manny for producing. Check out the rest of the content on the channel. Try to have a good day, everybody.